America finally got the World Cup in its backyard, and somehow the first thing half the world noticed was not the stadiums, not the goals, not the heat, not even the fact that everyone is arguing about whether we should say soccer or football. No, the thing that made people lose their minds was this: America found a way to put ad breaks into football. And I need you to understand how insane that sounds if you grew up with this sport outside the United States. Football is supposed to be one of the last big sports where the game just keeps breathing. 45 minutes, a little halftime, then 45 more minutes. The clock runs. The crowd lives with the tension. You cannot just chop it into pieces every time somebody has a brand message about insurance or trucks or a new streaming bundle. That is part of the appeal. It is not just the sport, it is the rhythm. That uninterrupted feeling is not an accident. It is baked into how the sport teaches you to watch. You do not get neat little chapters. You get momentum. You get a team slowly moving the other team around like furniture. You get a crowd sensing danger before the commentator says it. You get pressure that does not politely wait for a sponsored pause. That is why even a slow football match can feel alive to people who understand it. The story is not only the shot, it is the build up to the shot, the fear before the shot, and the collective groan when the shot never comes. So when fans saw full screen commercials during hydration breaks at this World Cup, the reaction was basically, oh my goodness, they Americanized the one thing we thought they could not Americanize. And I say that as an American. I know our sports culture. I love a lot of it. I grew up with the Super Bowl being part game, part national advertisement festival, part family snack competition. In the US, commercials are not just tolerated, sometimes they become the event. People will literally say, I do not care who wins, I am just here for the ads. That sentence would make a lot of football fans outside America stare at you like you just confessed to eating a candle. Because in football, the uninterrupted flow is sacred. Not sacred in a dramatic church bell way, but sacred in the sense that fans have organized their nerves around it for generations. The match builds because it does not keep stopping. The silence before a chance matters because it was not manufactured by a timeout. The pressure matters because nobody has paused the emotional damage to sell you a phone plan. That is why this ad break controversy hit such a nerve. It was not just, oh, commercials are annoying. Everybody knows commercials are annoying. It was that the commercials felt like they were breaking a contract between the game and the people watching it. Here is the truth. American sports taught us to expect interruption. Football taught the rest of the world to fear it. In American football, interruption is almost architecture. The play stops, everyone resets, the broadcast breathes, the camera finds a coach, the graphics come in, and the ad break slides into a space that already exists. Basketball has timeouts. Baseball has innings. Hockey has periods and stoppages. Our sports are not worse because of that. They are just shaped differently. They have natural doors where television can walk in. Football has windows, maybe, but not doors. So when television kicks one open, fans notice. And if you like watching my American brain have to explain why the rest of the world is yelling at us over a 2-minute ad break, make sure you are subscribed because this tournament is turning into a cultural stress test. The specific situation is this. The 2026 World Cup introduced mandatory hydration breaks, largely because North America in summer can be brutally hot. That part, honestly, is not ridiculous. Player safety matters. A match in Texas or Mexico or Miami, heat is not the same as a chilly Tuesday night in Manchester where everyone looks damp and spiritually defeated. The timing also matters because this World Cup is already the biggest and most complicated version of the tournament. 48 teams, 104 matches, 3 host countries, massive distances, and summer conditions that can go from uncomfortable to genuinely dangerous. So if FIFA says, we need hydration breaks, most reasonable people can understand the safety argument. The problem is what happened next. The safety break instantly became a commercial battlefield, and that made the whole thing feel less like care and more like a business model wearing sunscreen. But once you create a pause, you create inventory. And if there is one phrase that explains America better than almost any other, it is somebody saw inventory. Suddenly a break that was supposed to be about players cooling down became a television opportunity. Broadcasters could cut away, brands could buy time, viewers could be shown commercials. And for fans who watch football specifically because it does not behave like American sports TV, it felt like someone had found a side door into the game and started installing a vending machine. The backlash became especially loud because viewers were not only irritated by ads. In one early match, Fans complained that the broadcast came back late and missed the restart. That is the nightmare scenario. You can maybe convince people to tolerate a break if nothing important is happening. But football fans are trained to believe that something can happen at any second, including right after everyone thinks nothing will happen. Missing live play because of a commercial feels like a betrayal, and the anger was amplified because fans were comparing broadcasts in real time. Some people saw English language coverage cut away while Spanish language coverage stayed closer to the match. That made the choice feel even more obvious. It was not as if the laws of television required a full-screen ad. Another broadcast could keep viewers connected. Once fans saw that, the complaint changed from "I hate ads" to "wait, there was a better way, and you still chose the worst one." And that is where the cultural difference gets sharp. In the US, we are weirdly numb to missing the game around the game. We have replays, we have commercials, we have challenges, we have stoppages, we have halftime shows with more production value than some countries' national holidays. In American football, the broadcast is built around interruption. The sport itself stops so often that TV has learned to live inside those gaps. Soccer, or football, was never built like that. The camera stays with the pitch because the pitch is the story. Even when the ball is just being passed around midfield, fans are reading shape, pressure, fatigue, fear, impatience. A casual American viewer might see nothing. A lifelong fan sees the temperature of the match changing. That is why cutting away is not just cutting away from action. It is cutting away from information. And this is one of those moments where I think Americans accidentally reveal how we have been trained. We often treat sport as content. A game is a program. A program needs segments. Segments need sponsorship. Sponsorship needs space. Space becomes money. Money becomes normal. And after a while, you forget there was ever another way to watch. Football fans are not innocent either. Let us be honest, global football is extremely commercial. Shirts are covered in sponsors, stadium names change, gambling companies are everywhere, leagues chase international markets, clubs sell special edition kits like they are fashion houses with midfielders. FIFA itself is not exactly a tiny village charity trying to protect purity. So when football fans say America ruined it with ads, Americans can reasonably say, hold on, your sport is already swimming in money. But there is a difference between commercialization around the game and commercialization interrupting the game. That is the line people feel. Fans will tolerate a logo on a shirt because the match still moves. They will tolerate a sponsor board because the ball is still alive. They will tolerate a brand name on the tournament because, unfortunately, modern life. But when the screen disappears during the actual emotional rhythm of the match, that feels different. Also, this is the kind of bigger cultural pattern I go deeper on with members because ad breaks are not just about TV. They are about how America packages attention and how football culture resists being packaged. What I find fascinating is that Telemundo became part of the story because Spanish language coverage reportedly stayed closer to the match feed instead of cutting away the same way. That created this very funny situation where some English-speaking fans were basically saying, I do not speak Spanish, but at least they respect the ball. That is how angry people were. They were willing to trade language comfort for continuity. And honestly, I get it. If you are a football fan, the commentary language matters less than knowing whether the game has restarted. But we also have to talk about why American broadcasters behave like this in the first place. It is not just greed in some cartoon villain sense, although greed is always at the table wearing a nice suit. It is also the structure of American sports media. Rights are expensive. The World Cup is expensive. Broadcast networks pay huge amounts for access, and then they look for ways to make that money back. In US sports, the audience is already conditioned to accept that exchange. You get the spectacle, they get the ads. The problem is that global football audiences did not agree to that exchange in the same way. That is why the Telemundo comparison hurts so much. It showed that the break did not have to feel like a trapdoor. A broadcaster could make a different choice. Fans could still know what was happening. The game could stay visible, and once viewers realize another version exists, they do not experience the full screen ad as inevitable anymore. They experience it as a decision. Decisions can be criticized. In America, we are used to the idea that the broadcast has authority over the event. The broadcast tells you when to cheer. The broadcast cuts to the sideline reporter. The broadcast shows a celebrity. The broadcast goes to commercial. The broadcast returns with a sponsored replay. It becomes almost invisible because we grew up inside it. In football culture, the match has authority. The broadcast is supposed to serve it. That is a completely different philosophy. That is why fans reacted emotionally. They were not saying, never show me a commercial. They were saying, do not make the match serve the commercial. The hydration break itself is also complicated. On one hand, the heat is real, Players are human beings, not video game characters. They need water, they need medical protection. North American summer can be dangerous, especially in stadiums that trap heat or in matches played at awkward times for TV schedules. If someone collapses, nobody will care that the uninterrupted rhythm was preserved. There is a fair counter-argument here, and I do not want to ignore it. If players need water, they need water. Fans sitting on a couch in air conditioning do not get to act like heat stress is fake because it ruins the vibe. We have seen sports get safety wrong before. We have seen athletes push through dangerous conditions because tradition or television or pride said keep going. That is not noble. That is careless. So the break itself is not the villain. The villain is the feeling that the break was immediately swallowed by the same commercial logic football fans already distrust. On the other hand, fans are skeptical because the break is so easy to monetize, and once money appears, trust disappears fast. People start asking, was this really for safety? Or was safety the polite language around a new commercial window? That may not be completely fair, but it is predictable. Football supporters have watched institutions squeeze the game for decades. They know the smell of a revenue opportunity. The most annoying thing is that there were ways to handle it better. You could keep the live feed on screen. You could use a split screen. You could show the players, the benches, the crowd, the referee, the stadium, something that keeps the viewer inside the match. You could make the ad smaller than the game, instead of making the game disappear. You could return early every single time with no excuse. You could treat the break like a pause in play, not like a portal to different universe, because that is what a full-screen ad feels like. 1 second, you are in the World Cup. The next second, you are in an American pharmacy commercial, where everyone is walking through a sunlit kitchen and the side effects sound like a haunted poem. And then suddenly you are back, but the ball is already moving and everyone on the couch is shouting, "Wait, what happened?" That is the part that makes fans furious. Football trains you to live in the continuous present. American TV trains you to accept constant exits from the moment. Those two habits are now fighting in public. There is also a deeper psychological difference here. Americans are comfortable with sport as production. We like the package. We like the graphics, the music, the analysis desk, the celebrity guest, the perfect camera angle, the sponsored segment that somehow has its own little theme song. There is something very American about turning downtime into entertainment. This is also why the phrase Americanization gets thrown around so aggressively. People are not only talking about the United States as a place, they are talking about a style. Louder presentation, more sponsorship, more packaging, more attempts to turn every pause into money. And the uncomfortable thing is, America is incredibly good at that style. We can make a parking lot feel like a festival and a halftime show feel like a national ceremony. But when that style touches football in the wrong place, it does not feel exciting, it feels invasive. Football fans often prefer the discomfort of no downtime. The boring parts are not always a problem. Sometimes the boring parts are the tension. They let dread grow, they let hope become stupid, they let a crowd start muttering because they can feel their team losing control before anything has actually happened. A commercial break kills that atmosphere because it tells your nervous system, relax, we are selling snacks now. And football fans do not want to relax, they want to suffer properly. That sounds like a joke, but it is true. A lot of football culture is built around sitting with unease. A 1-0 lead is not comfortable. A 0-0 draw is not empty. A team passing backward is not always pointless. The match is a pressure cooker, and pressure cookers do not work if you keep opening the lid to advertise car insurance. If this whole situation made you yell at your TV, hype this video up and tell me in the comments whether you switched broadcasts, because I need to know how many people became temporary Spanish language viewers out of pure principle. Now, I do not think this means America cannot host football. That is too easy and too smug. The US has incredible stadiums, massive audiences, huge immigrant football communities, strong youth participation, and cities that can throw unbelievable events. America can absolutely host this tournament, but hosting football is not the same as converting football into the format American sports TV already understands. That is the lesson. You cannot invite the world over and then act shocked when the world has opinions about the furniture. The World Cup is not just a product, it is a ritual for millions of people. You can monetize a ritual, yes, and people have aggressively. But if you interrupt the wrong part, people feel like you have touched something you did not understand. And that to me is why the anger is bigger than 2 minutes of commercials. It is about trust. Fans are asking whether the people broadcasting the game actually understand what makes it emotionally powerful. Do they understand that the silence matters? That the crowd noise matters? That the camera staying with the pitch matters? That the flow is not empty space waiting to be filled? Because if they do not understand that, fans worry the sport will be slowly reshaped into something else. More breaks, more ads, more segments, more little sponsored interruptions until the match no longer feels like football, but like an American sports broadcast wearing a football costume. That worry is bigger in America because this country has a talent for scaling everything. If one break works, why not two? If a 2-minute window sells, why not a sponsored tactical timeout someday? That sounds dramatic, but fans think dramatically because they have seen small compromises become normal before. Football supporters are basically cultural smoke alarms. Sometimes they are too loud, but sometimes they smell the fire early. And here is the funny thing. America might actually learn from this if we are humble enough. Maybe not every second of attention needs to be sold. Maybe the beauty of a sport can be that it asks you to stay with it. Maybe a quiet moment is not dead air. Maybe not everything needs a brand partner. There is an opportunity here too. Imagine if American broadcasters discovered that restraint can be premium. Imagine selling the idea that the reason this sport feels different is because you do not leave it. That could actually be a selling point. Keep the camera on the pitch, let the crowd noise breathe, show the bench, show the players drinking water, let the tension stay in the room. You can still make money around the match, but you do not have to train the audience to leave the match every time a corporation waves. I know, radical. Somewhere an executive just got chills. But that is why this controversy matters. It is not because football fans hate America. It is because they recognize a pattern. They see a sport they love being placed inside a media culture that loves interruption, and they are saying, please do not do that to this. As an American living in the UK, I feel caught in the middle in the funniest way. My American side understands exactly why the ads appeared. My British side now understands why everyone wanted to throw the remote into the sea. Because football without flow is like tea, microwaved in a mug, technically possible, emotionally criminal. So yes, America put ad breaks in football, and fans are furious. Not because fans are fragile, not because they hate commercials more than normal humans, but because for once, the thing being interrupted was not just a game. It was the feeling of the game. And if broadcasters learn anything from this, I hope it is simple. Sell around the football if you must, but do not make the football disappear.